and everyone's looking at it and talking about it, but this also feels like the early days of ESG where we eliminated emissions by 2,000%. I don't know what these numbers mean,
Exactly.
right? And
Exactly.
so are we seeing anybody yet talk about bottom line impact for that? I mean, it feels like the only thing we're hearing financially is companies overspending on it.
Yeah, no, I think you said it exactly right, which is like that was just such corporate speak in what they
Yeah.
said. But when you read through it, what does it really mean? It means that they're increasing productivity internally and they're
Right.
reducing costs. So
Mm.
Pfizer had a similar usage of AI when they were talking about AI use in their second quarter earnings. That is helping them be more efficient and it was helping them say, here are things we shouldn't do. And so by making things more simple, we're actually cutting costs. So like right now we're still in that like using AI to cut costs even though it sounds a little bit like corporate speak, it does really seem like that's something that's happening. And if you think about like automating everyday tasks, that's the productivity improvements that we're looking for. And so if, Intuit, which has millions of customers using TurboTax every tax season, if that gets more and more automated, the customers can have a better, faster experience, and then Intuit can spend less money. We've got an increase in productivity, and that's driving the US economy. Now, just say like the robots in many forms come. Like what's the investment approach? Like how do you want to say like, okay, there's the robots in any form are coming. Like how do you capitalize on that best?
Yeah, so it would be great. Obviously, I think the knee-jerk reaction is to try and be invested in the robots themselves, but obviously there's a supply chain there
Mm.
because the uh, general with technology, the very cutting edge is higher risk, right? So actually investing in a robot company may be a more challenging proposition, but you work your way back up the supply chain, and we end up in all the typical, playbook things that we've done in other industries, which is right. Who are their suppliers? Who are their providers? Right?
Mm.
Who are the companies who benefit from that? And so I mentioned a company like Trimble, right? So you have to be able to provide that signal to the software. And so
Yeah.
the companies that are generating data, smart hardware, right, like we discussed earlier, those are interesting opportunities.
Mm.
The guys who are providing the parts that allow for that automation. We have an industrial conglomerate out of Europe, Schneider out of France, and their content and all this stuff is significant.
Right.
So they may not be themselves developing the software. In fact, I don't believe that they are, and they're definitely not an AI direct play. But they're not an AI play, right? I mean, they're going to benefit from this dynamic of using more equipment to replace labor. And so there's opportunities throughout the supply chain, either with the hardware or the parts for it, or even the software companies, like I mentioned. We look for the full automated robot solution, whether it is automated tractors or humanoids. We would love to see those opportunities. For us, it just not seeing that opportunity in the public markets just
Mhm.
yet, nor do we feel
Mhm.
like that risk profile is appropriate for the portfolio. So again, staying on the supply chain.
I think your point on COVID is pretty good in terms of COVID unlocking some of these things. Because I remember 20 years ago when a lot of the institutions here in the Boston area started to put courses online. And so it's, you can take an MIT course online. It was very exciting. And now, like, you can do the proper education all online. Never really been a DIY person myself, but I do use Duolingo. And when we started talking about this, I was thinking, well, at least like Duolingo is a little bit of, do it yourself when it comes to education. I don't know about you, Robin.
Yeah, no, I think that's an interesting point, right? Because you're highlighting, taking a course from an accredited institution, whether it's the Massachusetts Institute of Technology or Duolingo, who is a technology company app
Right.
provider, right? But I think there's interesting points from both of those perspectives. Is one, the major institutions have brought this on, right? They've fully
Mm.
embraced this, right? And so there's extensions, there's even hybrid. They're using the toolkit even for in-school people, right? So even the brick and mortar folks are still
Oh, yeah.
using remote tools they hadn't in the past, and
Hmm.
so that's increasing the reach, the efficacy of these institutions. And Duolingo as supplementary education, right? That it's a no-brainer, right? It's awesome. It's gamified learning, and so folks,
Yeah.
there's a whole section of the bookstore when we used to have bookstores of self-improvement, and people would literally just go and read titles and say, okay, that looks like a fun way to better myself. And now we have those through these apps like Duolingo and other providers. So yeah, I think it's enormously exciting. And we've massively destigmatized these educations, right?
Mm.
And so when we're thinking about avoiding trade volatility and some of these specific industries that have been targeted lately, there's a couple areas where you're actually fairly insulated. One area, which I've been a big fan of for quite some time, I love talking trash, is the garbage companies, right? And so you think about companies like Casella Waste, Clean Harbors. These are companies that are picking up waste that was generated in this country and basically placing it in other places where we store or process waste in this country. There's no international trade there. And so this thesis is very self-contained, if you will, within the waste business.
What's the positive side? Like, what's the reason to own it besides just not
Yeah.
being in the fray?
Well, so the positive thesis that for the landfill companies is that we just don't have enough landfills to go around, right? Nobody wants to build new ones, and as we think about recycling, that's become a challenging issue. We used to sell
Mm.
all of our recycling to China. China was buying our recycled products, and it was at a price where it even made sense to ship it all the way there. They're no longer accepting things to be recycled, and
Is
so
that
we
new?
it's been about 3, 4 years now.
Oh,
You
oh,
can think
okay.
about the pandemic. Right before the pandemic is when China really
Okay.
pushed back and said, "Hey, listen, we have enough waste here. We don't need to be buying cheap waste." And so waste is a challenge, right? And so we are still generating tons and tons of it, literally, and I just don't have anywhere to put it. And the prices have gone bonkers here. And for anyone living in the East Coast under the current heat wave, heat dome, electricity demand, right, front and center today. And we think about just where we are in terms of a society and all the technology and innovation that's happened. And if you think about a lot of the innovation in the last decade, literally all of it's been unified by electricity in some form or another, right? We've entered a digital age. And even before the
Mhm.
digital age, we knew the power of electricity for transporting power, right? Batteries for storage. And so electricity and electrons have always been kind of a part of everything we do. But man, really taking front and center stage here. And now we have really just EVs taking off, right? For a variety of reasons, they seem to be the new technology for transportation, and that it extends beyond that. So we're electrifying everything these days, from scooters to bicycles, skateboards, literally everything, even drones. And now, obviously, with AI, as artificial intelligence really starts to take off here, there really is a huge inflection in demand. The intensity of demand from AI is just massive. And so we've already gone digital economy and everything, and now we're at the forefront of AI. It really begs the question, how do we get power for everything?
And so I think that's like this digital economy growth. I think it doesn't stop. Like we continue to want to have things be more convenient. We're going to continue to seek out the easiest, in some cases, the cheapest solutions for the things that we need to do. But that sort of is going to continue. And so like, what's the outflow? It's more demand for electricity.